Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market, that is crypto market, the NFT market, and the meme coin supercycle market, if that does exist. Loaded up for discussion today. We have meme NFTs going up, Project Eon, Sproto, Pudgy Puppets, Peplicator, all running. We'll get into those in just a little bit. Multiple meme coins up 20 to 60%. The chart was pretty outrageous this morning. We'll dive into those and some theses going on there. Some interesting stuff happening with Murad and ZachXBT weighing in as well with some interesting details. We'll dive in a little bit. L2 Scroll announces Binance listing with 5.5% allocation for Binance. We're going to dive into those details as well. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs and a creator discussion as usual. On a Wednesday, how to become more profitable as you continue to publish more. So stay tuned for that. Today, we've got a full house. Legendary Sam and Brett are in the co-host seats. We're ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is so risky, especially when memes are going 20 to 60% on a daily basis. And just a reminder that we don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Sammy, it is Wednesday. It is the 9th of October. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm good. So yeah, opening up the meme trenches, getting stuck in there. I noticed DeFi Ignis has just made a post to say he's loaded up some wallets. So he's a prominent DeFi person now coming into memes. So I think there's a bit of a transition happening. It's interesting to see.
It feels like there's a lot of quote unquote, and I don't mean this as in they actually are, but the more respectable people on the timeline, or those who might consider themselves too sophisticated for memes, I feel like they're about to capitulate. That's just an instinctive feeling that I'm having.
It's just got too big to ignore. I think like even people that like have mid-curved it for too long, it's just like, well, what are we doing? People are making money here. Let's just buy, get some exposure, go to that far end of the risk curve, and buy some colts.
Yeah, I think that might be the case. Brett,
that's how it starts.
You're shaking your head.
Oh, everyone's making money. I'll allocate 5, 10, 15 grand. I'll start chucking in 1,000 here, 1,000 there, and then you have 0 grands, and then everyone else is making money, and you fucking lost it. You fed the beast. Oh man. So yeah, it's tough though, right? Like it's the NFT thing of this cycle. It's the whole narrative. So like if you do want to make outsized gains, like you have to get in the trenches, but like you can't. In my opinion, you can't half-ass it. Like you have to like try to like actually lean in, actually understand what's going on, and I don't know, maybe try to find yourself in some ball chats or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty wise. Hopefully, we're going to dive in a little bit more on this, and we'll definitely need some more wisdom on that specific topic. Legendary, how are you feeling generally with respect to the memes? Are you capitulating, or are you just happy doing your Polymarket bets?
I'm happy doing my thing, and I'm happy for the show today because we not only have the full house, we have the spicy things to discuss, and particularly looking forward to that exchange between Murad and ZachXBT and some of the comments in there.
Yes.
I imagine that Brett also has some strong takes on that, so I'm quite excited for that part.
Excellent. As we said, this message came in from Zach just before the show, actually identifying loads and loads of Murad's wallets. So we'll share those details as we get into it in the headlines a little bit later. We've got a few things to do before we get there. But let's start with the price action, as always, to get you up to speed with everything that's happened in the past 24 hours. When it comes to the majors, we have Bitcoin not doing anything. It's just flat. All the activities it memes at the moment. Bitcoin's flat at 62.1. ETH is flat at 2.4. Solana is down 1% at 143. In terms on the meme side of things, Doge is up 1%. Pepe is flat. WIF is up almost 2%. Popcat is down 2%. So these kind of what you might consider the major meme coins, maybe in some way, are like fairly flat at the moment. MOG is down 2% as well. But it's these other coins that have just been ascending. SPX up 16%. The other ones that we mentioned in the headlines, which I'll come to now, absolutely ripping. Lock-in up 60%, Mini 70%, Sigma 140%, Nub 54%. Retardio 30%, Apu 25%. So really, really aggressive price action here. I think probably instigating a little bit of FOMO across the timeline. Getting into some of the other headlines, meme NFTs. So even on the NFT side, things started to move. Project Eon up 100% to 1.75 ETH. Sproto Gremlins up 30% to 2.2 ETH. Pudgy Puppets up 46% to 0.08. And the Peplicator, which is the one that is separated from all the others, which is the Matt Fury generative collection, was up 50% to 0.07 ETH. 3 out of those 4 mentioned, Peplicator being the exception, are NFTs listed on Murad's list not so long ago. Remember, Murad is the guy who has taken over the timeline recently with his meme coin supercycle thesis. I know lots of other people mention the meme coin supercycle, but he's the person who has become the poster boy, poster child, the big evangelist for memes at the moment. Final headline, also very, very important, stepping us away from memes. L2 Scroll announces Binance listing with 5.5% allocation for Binance. Scroll said that recognizing that Binance is the world's largest distribution platform for token assets, 5.5% of the total token supply is allocated to participate in the Binance launch pool and pre-market on launch of the SCR token. I think it'll be very important to dive into that. It's been met with quite a lot of criticism on the timeline, suggesting that Binance are taking too much out of the pot, taking too much of an allocation. So I know Legendary and Bread will have some thoughts on those tokenomics. Some notable sales from around the space: CryptoPunk 3D selling for 72 ETH, a rare Pepe Nakamoto card sold for 27 ETH. So that's the price action and the headlines. Legendary, let's head over to our NFT marketplace partner Mintify, see what's going on that side.
Absolutely, yeah. Basically, the major JPEG market is doing the same as the majors in crypto. It's pretty flat. Bored Apes down 0.2%, sitting at a 10.83 ETH floor. Pudgy's 9.5 ETH floor for them, down 2.4%. Azuki is absolutely unchanged from yesterday, still sitting at a 5.18 ETH floor. Milady's definitely benefiting from that uplift in both memes and meme NFTs, up 6.6% on the day, 3.38 ETH floor for them. And I know it's part of the headlines. I know you pointed it out in the post referenced by Tyler. Definitely want to have a look at that collection real quick. The Mog Auras have pumped even more since Tyler's post, up 700% over the last 24 hours. I think it's been a while that I was able to talk about JPEGs and use percentages that high, and up 1,500% over the last 7 days.
Absolutely insane. Legendary, or actually, this is a question for everyone at the moment. Just trying to place where we are. Just think about. I saw a take which got me thinking, where the essence of the post was something like Bitcoin will usually lead these types of big pumps. Like if Bitcoin goes very aggressively, then the assumption is everything else then moves as a consequence because Bitcoin is leading and then everything else goes. Bitcoin's just been flat for a while, and it's definitely just been trading within a range from summer till now between 58 and 70, not going anywhere. And now we're just seeing this explosion in the other stuff. Do we think that it's fake in the sense that usually things go when Bitcoin goes, and therefore this is just some like crazy activity that's being instigated / inspired by the Murad movement? Or do we think that this is like a legit thing that's going to go beyond and, you know, continue as Bitcoin moves up, if that is what's going to happen in the future? Open question for maybe Legendary first, if you're unmuted, and then Sam as well.
Sure. I mean, on the Mog Auras, for example, if you look at their market cap, that's a 900K market cap, right? We're talking about
very small,
relatively low market cap things, at least in terms of the NFTs that are pumping, even though the percentage gain is massive, even though some of them are sitting at a 2 ETH floor like the Eon collection does. It's still relatively small. It doesn't take a lot of money to move that up, especially in absence of blur farmers who would be otherwise waiting for you to buy that shit up so they can dump on you. So it doesn't take a lot of money, and hence I'm not a big fan of that Bitcoin moves first, then this happens. Like, we only had a handful of cycles, and I just think that's not enough data to extrapolate the behavior of each cycle. And right now we're seeing someone who's a main character is obviously getting all of the attention, and is getting a lot of money to move and following correspondingly to what that person is posting. So I don't think that is neither validating nor invalidating the thesis of what is moving first, last, and second in a cycle, because A, it's very, very small in terms of some of the market caps we observe. B, you have highly influential individuals who are able to move the markets themselves. So that makes the whole data set very, very messy, in my opinion.
Okay. I definitely want to just hear everyone's opinion on this, actually. Sam.
I tend to side with Legendary here because I think, like, if you look at Bitcoin dominance, I think hit 58%, which is like ridiculously high. So it kind of suggests that all these altcoins are bleeding significantly. And I think that this meme coin super cycle, or the exposure and the coverage that that's getting, is because of these main characters. And I think there isn't sufficient liquidity in the market or there is sufficient liquidity in this small pie of a market to actually move these kind of small tokens. Like I go down Pump Fund, and you kind of the Pump Fund listing on CoinGecko, and you can see some of those smaller caps that, I mean, most of them don't push past, say, 50 mil. You've got a few exceptions with Frog and Mudeng, which are kind of that 150, 160 mil. But you look at Sigma, which just Stefano mentions in the comments, like that's gone absolutely parabolic in the past, like sort of 24 hours. I think it's up 100%, and that's like a reasonable market cap. So I think it is all just playing into this thesis. Like, you can see all these NFTs that are linked to memes. It's like people are looking for that next thing. Like, even rec guys are up 35%. And to be honest, that's kind of like a cult movement, like a London-based thing that people have kind of built around Ovi's art. So that whole rect culture. And I think that's the same thesis with Frog. Like, Frog is very much like an artist, and they're kind of building this kind of meme culture around that artist. And I think we're seeing that with these individual things. And I agree to an extent with Murad's point around cults. Like, find a cult, invest in the cult, and you have an incredible marketing play. And I do think, like, NFTs were at some point that kind of thing, and Pudgy probably have been the most successful in doing that. Like, sure, you've got your community as your driving force behind that marketing. I just think that some of these other meme coin communities are kind of doing it probably better at the moment.
Sure. I liked your point on Bitcoin dominance. Just taking a look, because I know a lot of people's attention is getting going towards the memes and stuff. But if you actually look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, all of this chat about something going a 7x or a 10x or maybe even more, it's not really making a dent in this overall picture. Brad, any perspective here on this, or anything that we've discussed so far?
No, you guys started touching on it with the dominant stuff. Like, obviously there's a rotation typically between Bitcoin and then alts, right? Everyone just starts going down the risk curve chasing stuff. Honestly, the thing that I started thinking on whenever, like, we mentioned the MOG NFT collection is that going to be the avenue that leads to NFTs going crazy again, where instead of having like a singular group that's intention is to launch a specific NFT collection, you have these meme coin communities, and then they, like, that's the genesis of the niche, like, hyper fan, hyper whatever NFT collection. So you have MOG, all these holders, a big community, whatever, and then, like, if you want to show that you're a super mogger, you now have a MOG NFT to go after. Same thing with, like, you know, you have like the all the lady shit, right? And well, actually that's the opposite now, because that started as the NFT community. But I'm wondering if that's going to start being like the genesis of like the next gen NFT collections. It spawns out of these meme coin communities and doesn't have like a pointed person that's just launching an NFT collection.
I like that idea. The reason why I like that idea is not necessarily because I think it's the right thing to do. It's more because at some point in time, people will be looking for something to do. If the price isn't going up, well, I don't know. Does maybe the price just needs to keep going up, to be honest.
But
Because
I think
I'm wondering if the price isn't going up, then they'll try to figure out something which will get that community.
It's utility, right? Yeah. Or it's like a liquidity rotation. It's a whatever. Yeah, it's all that shit.
Interesting.
But I think it's the attention, right? Like, I think, like, ultimately, if you've got people that believe in a project, and generally it needs a leader to do that at the early stages. And I think that if you have a leader that's kind of pushing that community, they become an extension of that marketing. And ultimately, if you look at traditional businesses, like, unless they market their product, no one knows about it. So I think that does come down to it as well. And having like a core cult definitely helps that, whether that's through NFTs or meme coins. Like, I think you have more people participate in a meme coin than you can an NFT.
Interesting. Okay. Legendary, did you have a final point here?
Yeah, I like a point that Jess has made on the timeline content creator, saying that when inequality goes through the roof and upward mobility dies, those that haven't gone through the golden path resort to hyper gambling. And I feel like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely that argument, that almost a financial nihilism argument, that everything's got so difficult, got so ridiculous that there's no point trying to make it in any kind of traditional route, and this might be the only way. Point taken on that for sure. And we are going to discuss the Murad stuff and the Zach exchange a little bit later as we dive into the headlines. But before we do that, we've got a couple of discussion points for today. The first one being the HBO documentary, Satoshi being revealed as someone who was not even on the list, I don't think. But Legendary, I'm going to pass over to you to break that down and explain some of your thinking and how you played this bet. I think you did quite a good job on it.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, why is it relevant? Obviously, HBO did take a lot of time and mindshare on the timeline, got up to 44 mil in wagered volume on Polymarket. HBO even made the claim that the documentary will be so impactful that it will also affect the US presidential election. So they did definitely do a lot of hyping around the documentary. And if you looked to the lead up in the week to the documentary, we had different people, including Hal, including Lance Sussman, all prominent figures and devs in the Bitcoin ecosystem who were rumored to be leaked. So there's been a lot of alleged leaks. Then yesterday there was an actual leak of the documentary that insinuated that Peter Todd, again, Bitcoin dev, who is still alive compared to some of the other names in that list, is apparently the name that HBO will claim to be Satoshi. That footage that was leaked was also shared on Forbes and other different media. And it was from the end of the documentary, I think around the 1.5 hour mark of what is a 1 hour 40 documentary, which then led to the bet, which is on other multiple shoot up massively on Polymarket, because again, that Peter Todd figure was not included in the original list that Polymarket had created for that bet. As for my own personal experience on Polymarket, I was one actually who in the beginning was leaning very strongly to bet on no for other multiple, because I was thinking it's going to be someone from the list. And the rules made it pretty clear that they're not going to really allow for multiple to be a potential outcome. When I saw the leak, I did reposition myself and did bet my my Polymarket balance on no.
So you're going to say my entire net worth.
So I have Polymarket balance on yes instead of the no that I wanted to go with initially. However, apart from my personal experience with that, which luckily turned out to go pretty well last minute, the pushback on the timeline was pretty strong, including Peter Todd himself, who said he's not Satoshi, including other analysts and commentators who said that the evidence presented in the documentary was rather weak, with the strongest piece being an alleged forum post that was created by Peter Todd using Satoshi's account, which is not really true and left a lot of people confused, given the hype, given the typical quality that goes into HBO productions, to have a documentary like that. One personal note, I've seen parts of the documentary, haven't seen it all yet, but one personal note that I observed is that in the beginning, the narrator is saying that it would be a risk to expose Satoshi if that person is still alive.
Oh,
and
really?
then they proceed to do the very same thing at the end of the show with their claim. So that I found a bit weird.
That is strange. Brad, did you want to come in on this?
Yeah, I just remember when we talked about it, whatever it was, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I don't know. And I said, whatever happens, it's going to be underwhelming. Was my prediction correct in your eyes?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, obviously, a lot of people lost a lot of money on Polymarket, and that is not underwhelming for those people affected by the losses. But generally speaking, I think it's in the grand scheme of things that documentary is a nothing burger. Yeah.
I mean, one observation, Sam, I'll come to you in a second. One very obvious observation, I think, is the crazy volatility of this bet. Like, it seemed to be the case that everyone was absolutely convinced no more than 48 hours ago or 72 hours ago that it was Len Sussman. Then I saw it yesterday, and I think Nick Szabo had taken the lead by like quite a significant margin. And
All it
then it
takes is a
ended up
good
being
thread,
someone else.
buddy.
Huh?
Yeah. So all it takes is a good thread. Like someone comes up with like a detailed thread and like, oh, that's for sure it. Until you read another thread and like, oh, wait a minute, that one's for sure it. And then yeah, it's just humans.
Yeah, it just made me very conscious, even on a like it wasn't small volume either. I think that was it 40, I don't want to make up the number, legendary, 44 million in the end.
44 mil, yeah. And that's
44
kind of
mil was done this, so it's not nothing. And
that shows the weakness of Polymarket, right? Because people say it's a truth finding machine, etc. And that was a perfect example. People thought insiders were betting, HBO producers were betting on Len, were betting on other people, while that clearly wasn't the case. Because if you're an HBO insider, you would probably bet on the right person and not on the wrong one. Unless you want to manipulate the market, which again is way riskier than just betting on the outcome that you know will happen. So people read social media, they read a thread, they saw an alleged leak, and they were betting on that. They didn't have any inside information. And ultimately, the truth finding quest of that failed until there was an actual leak before the documentary, which for that leak, if you saw that video, that looked very, very legit. You didn't need the Polymarket layer to validate that this is going to be the outcome of that. So that's and that happens with a lot of volume, right? It's not a small bet, it's 44 mil. So this is the limitation of that. When you have threads, when you have pieces of content that go viral and are absolutely capable of moving betting markets on Polymarket.
fascinating. Good stuff, Sam. Maybe a final point from you here, and then we're going to move on.
I guess I'm more interested in the actual Polymarket mechanics, and probably one for Legendary here. But how long did you notice before like that leak of the Peter Todd piece of information to the Polymarket odds being adjusted? Like, how quickly did people kind of close that gap?
Polymarket is pretty slow for crypto terms. Like, you do have, if you catch that, you have a couple of minutes and then things start to move slowly and you see the odds moving. But I would say you have 10, 15, sometimes maybe 20 minutes. If you look at the bigger elections, like the Trump, the big elections, the bigger bets, Trump presidential one, where you had new polling data come in that still saw Harris in the lead, but saw that lead getting weaker. That took hours to populate on Polymarket, which then ultimately lead to Trump leading again on Polymarket. But that was off the back of new election data coming in. Obviously, also whales betting on that. But if your hypothesis would have been, oh, new polling data makes Harris look worse, even though she's still favored, but Polymarket is leaning Trump either way, so that will be positive for Trump's odds, you would have had hours time to get that bet in.
Because this is the thing, because even the smaller decentralized prediction markets, like, it kind of relies on the market to adjust those odds. And I think if you go to the even smaller ones, it sometimes takes a lot longer than even Polymarket to do that. So I'm just trying to work out how efficient there are, and there's definitely opportunities to try and capitalize on, as long as there's liquidity there. But yeah.
I mean, I've seen it. Maybe one last point on that, because I know we have a lot of other things to go into. When I had that post about Thread Guys bet with will he interview Trump, it didn't even go massively viral, then had, I don't know, 30, 40, 50K views, something like that. And that alone in 2 hours basically more than doubled Thread Guys odds when they were like still pretty low that he gets the interview, after I broke down that the rules stipulated, hey, he just needs to ask one question in video. And the more that idea was shared, the higher his odds got, especially once it was clear that he will show up to that event. So it's an efficient market, but it's very slow at being efficient compared to what we are used to otherwise in crypto.
Very interesting. I think there is a reasonable entrepreneurial opportunity in Polymarket at the moment. As you say, Sam, there's like the gaps don't get closed that quickly. And clearly people don't know what they're doing, or there's like enough uncertainty around for there to be wild swings. So something to keep an eye on. We're going to keep it moving. Remember, we've got the Murad ZachXBT conversation coming up as we dive into the headlines in just a little bit. But before we get there, let's get into our entrepreneurial segment for the week, Publish and Profit, where we explain some of the key secrets and tips to making money online as a creator. Today, we'll focus on one of the most important actions to take before and after the content itself, which is marketing pre and post publication. This segment is brought to you by Lil Nouns, an expansion DAO based on the famous Nouns DAO, who fund cool creative endeavors which can proliferate the Nounish meme. So everyone would be obviously very, very happy if all they had to do was publish and all the attention arrived immediately. But what is clearly obvious is that when you're starting out, and actually even when you are more established, doing a little bit extra before and after you publish is pretty helpful to making sure your content increases in reach. So here are a few concrete ways that I've come up with, the things that we do for the show, which help to continuously remind people of our presence and what we are doing. So pre-show, there is, of course, the announcement tweet, and everyone loves the announcement. Sometimes even an announcement of an announcement can be good for building up excitement too. Our post announcing DK's interview on the show, for example, did 12K views and got a lot of people signing up for the show. So that was great. But we also shared it with our partners Shape and Gondi in case they missed it too, so they could share too. I also noticed, for example, how Bread has been writing things like this. He said the other day, with respect to L2s, last call for the high throughput L2s before he starts digging in, and then listing all the L2s on his radar already. I think this is a great example of how you can just vocalize what you're doing and focusing on so people know. And second, to get people engaged, to get them on your radar, to try to convince you that they need to focus on you instead of what they're already focusing on. Post-show, there are also multiple things you can do too. Screenshots of the show and people having fun typically work, as well as clips of the best highlights from the show. A key learning for me, actually, and this is kind of philosophical in some sense, is people care as much about things happening as being there for when they happen. Meaning, if you manage to secure a particular interview, people don't necessarily need to be there for the interview to agree that it was important. They just need to know about it before or after. So that pre and post-show excitement is crucial to create. Legendary, I know you've got some thoughts on this from some of our viral shows. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to think about reach and virality from, say, the perspective of the modern market, which at the end of the day is a show, is a product, is not a single person. It's a team of people working on delivering the show every day versus getting that reach as an individual creator. And I feel like that's completely different. You know, we talked about being an individual creator and obviously seeing Brett finding his niche in being one of the most tech savvy people in the space when it comes to understanding what happens on ETH, what happens with L2, seeing Sammy being incredibly playing that incredibly well to get news in a very, very timely fashion, break down a new opportunity, a new product, a new launch. But that's something that if you're running a structured show is a bit more difficult to replicate, right? The modern market has a call sheet for every show that breaks down the show in basically in 5 to 10 minute segments, and all of us know exactly what happens at what time in the show, and that needs to find a balance, needs to strike a balance with what you mentioned before, B, when we have something going wrong, when we have obviously the Azuki Elementals mint that got massive pushback, when we have suddenly prominent people like we had Iggy joining on stage when she launched Mother, and you have to basically adjust the whole show to that, but you still want to find the balance to deliver the rest of the show, especially coming from that perspective that you get thousands of new people in that show because it goes viral, but these people won't be there to come back tomorrow, right? They need to see what you would typically do. They need to at least see a glimpse. Oh, it's an interesting discussion. Oh, there's other things. Oh, they do have a Web3 roundup for them to know, oh, this is a daily thing. I might get interested in that. So discoverability as a show, as a corporate account, as a project, etc., and the user listener retention, whatever the thing is that you're building, work very, very differently, very different on a show, on a project level than you do on an individual level. And hence, going to all the things that you mentioned, creating the the post show excitement, sharing that journey, and also sharing it with our individual accounts, and basically going back to the individuals behind the show is, I think, a very, very important factor in approaching the reach strategy of a show, of a product or project.
Yeah, I think it was funny when we had Iggy on, for example, people didn't necessarily need to be on with us. But when people heard about it, then they suddenly had a way higher opinion of the show. It's like, okay, well, that's cool. You don't need to be on the show to think that our show is good. You just need to know that certain events happen. That's one of the key events that happened for me, where it's like I started to realize about human psychology a bit more as well. Brad, I wanted to bring you in here. I mentioned you in this. I think you've been super vocal recently and doing a great job of being vocal about what you do, getting people excited about what you do, which is definitely more on the technical side as well. What are your tactics at the moment? What can you share for people to kind of take away?
Yeah, you actually already called it out pretty well. Like, one, just being vocal, right? Like doing that stuff and letting people come to you. And two, not like posting through the less engagement moments to ultimately curate the group of people that you want to engage with, right? It's like my content, like we mentioned, I don't know, maybe it was Monday or last week, that like I feel the need to start posting about meme coins and stuff occasionally because like it is such a hot topic. That's not
Tempting.
what I do. That's not really what interests me. It's like tempting to kind of lean into it a little bit, and then like in those moments, I just continue to post about L2s and architecture and like, you know, educational content and shit like that, which like maybe isn't the thing that's going to be the hottest thing on the timeline, but over time it is building up people that do engage in that content and connects me with those people so that, you know, when meme coins fade, which they will because everything goes through cycles, is like I've curated my listeners that ultimately engage with my content. That is something that I enjoy. And like, yeah, you just kind of push through some of that stuff. And then, yeah, the tactic of like kind of just blasting things out that aren't fully cooked. Like you may actually feel a need to sit there and cook on something and get something perfect over the course of, I don't know, a couple of weeks, a month, whatever, and then ultimately put out this perfectly formed thing, but you don't have the reach to actually like do anything with it. Doesn't no one sees it. Sometimes it'll take off, but that's not always the case. And people like being involved with the process. So if you sit there and you post continuously about this stuff to kind of like directionally point to where you want to go, people will contribute to that and help you out. And yeah, maybe you make the end product better. So yeah, just tweet more, frankly.
The reason why I appreciate that honesty, Brad, the reason why I find this helpful is because there's literally been a process where we advised Brad to be more vocal about stuff. He then became more vocal about stuff. And then by him being more vocal about stuff, it reminded me to then be more vocal about stuff. And then like we've subsequently got better offers as a consequence. So I hope that's helpful because I know we have a lot of creators out there and lots of people would love to either do this more full time or be more profitable or whatever. And sometimes it just requires that constant reminder or people seeing people who are doing good examples of it. So I hope that is helpful as part of that conversation. As always, shout out to Lil Nounsdao and Expansion DAO, based on the famous Nouns DAO. They're always funding cool creative endeavors like this one. They've been one of my biggest supporters for a long period of time. So huge shout out to them. Look, we've got a lot of interesting things still to cover. Let's go straight into probably the hot topic for the day, maybe even the hot topic for the week. Murad has been tweeting again, and now maybe in opposition to ZachXBT, who has entered the chat. Murad had this to say in the last 24 hours. He said that the meme stock craze of 2021 was just a test run for the meme coin supercycle. Things haven't even begun yet. As we mentioned at the top of the show, all sorts of the coins on his list and the NFTs on his list have been ripping. You can see that pinned in the snapshot, pinned up top if you want to go through those again. We won't go through those again. But his specific calls are moving very, very aggressively up. But Zach came out with this tweet just 2 or so hours ago, I think, if I'm checking correctly. Yep, just over 2 hours ago. He said, I uncovered 11 high confidence wallets tied to Murad holding $24 million in meme coins on ETH and Sol, so the community can monitor his future activity. He says, why do I say these 11 wallets belong to Murad? All wallets were funded from the same wallet. Funding source is also directly tied to an STFX team address. Holdings are similar to his posts, and continued use of a particular bridge for each Solana address. So why is this important? A, you've now got transparency, alleged transparency, if this is true, and Zach typically is pretty damn good at this stuff. So, you know, we still need to confirm that that's definitely correct. But A, we may have transparency over Murad's wallets now, which is probably quite significant. But B, there's been this kind of big discussion going on in the comments. Some people saying, great, thank you for providing this transparency. The blockchain's all about transparency. It's good that we now know what this very significant main character is kind of thinking about, how he wants to participate, or how he, will communicate what he thinks is bullish, and then just check how his wallet corresponds to what he says on the timeline, versus a group of people who are taking the position that you could potentially be endangering this person who is doxed, and then kind of displaying the amounts in their various wallets. And second, just kind of, providing transparency over something which other people are arguing doesn't need it. Like, I think one of the big arguments was something like something like this: participants have had an opportunity to feel and believe in the crypto market thanks to Murad, instead of being value extracted predatory teams. So it's kind of like, look, just get on Team Murad. We're on his team. Leave him alone. So it's been a bit controversial, but I'd love to go around here and get people's takes. I think people will be looking for some takes here. Legendary, probably going to go to you first because you said you wanted to start with some spice today. What's your position here?
I think it's absolutely mental that people come at ZachXBT saying you can't expose his wallets, that's dangerous to that person, etc. And to basically make the statement, I'd rather not know when this person is buying and selling, who's calling for absurdly high FTVs. I'd rather be potentially dumped on, or just never know, as long as this guy can scream from the top of his lungs that this coin will hit 5, this will hit 50 bill FTV, and have zero accountability and transparency for that, and attacking Zach for that he does the research and actually allows to see what's going on is mental to me. It's also absurd to me that there's the naivete of people like RSMR posting that, oh, now that this wallets are public, he can never sell. It's not like that, we don't know for certain that these are all the wallets. Zach has clearly said they have been funded from the same wallet. If he has an independent funding cycle from that with another 10 wallets, we'll never know. So we don't know yet. I'm not going to say we never know. That's an exaggeration. And just saying that even his doxed wallets, he won't be able to dump that and do that. Like, people who are doxed have dumped things, have done far worse things. We had a guy called SPF who built an exchange and rugged everyone, and he was pretty fucking doxed for the years that he did that. So some of the takes and statements on that, and that has nothing to do with Murad's bull thesis. Like, that's perfectly fine for him to come out, and I have zero issues with him. I have zero issues with the fact that he had the fund and lost money. He's been super transparent about that. He's been transparent about that on the Fomo Hour interview, mentioned it unprompted. So that's nothing to do with his meme thesis, but just that there's someone doing a service to try to provide more transparency and being attacked for that, because some people rather prefer to not have the transparency, seems very, very weird to me.
You had me, it was an intelligent response. You had me with naivete. Your pronunciation of naivete made the whole thing sound accurate. It was entirely accurate. I agree with that. I've actually got some more thoughts on it, but I want to hear from other people first to see other people's perspectives. Sam, what about you? What's your thinking here? Are you just on board with Legendary? Is there any nuance here? It might be net benefit to know, but price action wise, is this like just a hindrance at least?
I don't think it's a hindrance. I think so. Murad went on Fomo Hour yesterday, and he was asked directly, "Are you going to sell some of these coins?" And he said explicitly that he was going to sell them probably in Q4 2025, Q1 2026. I think he said that SPX was going to be a long-term hold because he believes in that long term, and he will hold like a large bag of that. But he's pretty open about it, and I think the fact that this is on chain, ZachXBT connecting the dots, like I think a lot of people are fairly blockchain savvy, so they'll be able to work out some of these wallets anyway. But just to have that repository of information, then you as someone who buys some of these meme coins can make an informed decision. It's like he's been pretty open. You can listen to all his videos, listen to the shows that he goes on, get like a bigger picture of like what's going on. So for me, it's a net good. Like it doesn't really concern me too much.
Okay. I've got some more thoughts on it, but maybe before I go to Brad, you mentioned
purely
two people.
social signal. That's what it is.
Social signal. Okay, I'll come to you in a sec.
That's all it is. Yeah.
You don't want me to come to you after I say this. Well, both people have just mentioned the interview. For the people who maybe didn't miss it or didn't get it, because obviously not many people listen to the whole thing of anything. Here was Tyler's takeaways from it to get you up to speed, to get a general sense of his position. Sam mentioned a few of good points. He's clearly done the research and built a thesis with conviction. His outlook is 8 to 14 months with multi-cycle holds for his top plays. So yes, as Sam said, at least what he is saying at the moment is some of these things are not even to be sold, arguably. They're just like multi-cycle holds, which personally I'm taking with not just a pinch of salt, like a lot of salt in. But look, that's the position. I'm just articulating what Tyler's summary was. He believes 2023 memes will be top performers this cycle due to duration held and what that means for the base. His focus has been on ETH and Sol ecosystem because that's where Altcoin whales have bags. He's operating with a Bitcoin and memes barbell strategy. We've heard that a lot in general. So the position is no reason to hold ETH or Sol when top memes will outperform them. And he did mention, as Sam said as well, that he will DCA out of positions when they're overvalued and encouraged others to do as well. Reinforces belief that NFTs tied to memes will also outperform. Brad doesn't want me to come back to him, but I am going to come back to him with a maybe different question. What do you think of this like meta? It's kind of a meta analysis I'm going to ask you here. It seems like we're doing like these random investigations into people and then like doing, instead of like looking at fundamentals or looking at this or that, we've, you know, on one side, we're like going off into some investigation on who Satoshi is, and that's going off in weird directions. Now we're going off into this direction of this person who's risen to extreme prominence very recently. What do you make of this? Like just the fact that we're kind of looking to put all our trust in a person, and
I'm surprised you're surprised. This is an entire industry built on cults. Look at every blockchain. Look at like anything that's been successful, right? Charles Hoskinson's for Cardano. Like everyone like thinks that Cardano's a scam, but it's got a really like charismatic founder. Look at Vitalik with Ethereum. Look at the fabled Satoshi stuff with like, dude, we're building churches all over the place over here, and like it's just this is the priest of the meme coin church, and they were trying to find the priest of the fucking Bitcoin church. Like none of that stuff is surprising at all. Like that's what we've done since the beginning.
I like it. I like that phraseology. Funky, your hand is raised. Welcome to the stage, my friend. Put a bow on this topic for us.
GM friends. Yeah, I love how Brett brought it back to religion, because that was one of the things that hooked me with Murad, is just the whole religiosity argument. But I think, especially in the case of SPX, and what I'm about to say is not financial advice, of course, he talks about how that will be the chosen one among the TradFi bros when they come. And when you think about the ease of access, because it also is on Ethereum, Base, and Solana, if the normies come and they start getting wind of this one, just the whole SPX 6900 thing, it's, I don't know, it's peak meme.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, one thing I have wondered is that there's a lot of things on his list. Can they all just move at the same time? Does there have to be a chosen one amongst all the other chosen ones? I guess that is up for debate and something we will monitor.
But I do think that's becoming a hit list. Like I look at Dee's made a post yesterday or today about bringing one of his normie friends in, and he went directly to the Murad list. So I think it's basically becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think just one other point on the comparison to people checking wallets, like Vitalik's being heavily monitored. Like you could I just made a thing with Inverse Bra where he's literally doing bull posts, and I don't know if he's doing that intentionally as a meme because he's being monitored, but then he's selling straight after. So yeah, I don't know, like blockchain, it's good, but it's also bad. Like people are being overly scrutinized, and I think that probably makes sense as to why the past 24 hours Monero is the top coin pumping, like a privacy coin. So
just one sentence of context on that Vitalik bull post, because it's exactly what Sammy has been describing, what's happening with like over scrutinize people to some extent and like just pick people out, pick things out of context. For example, Vitalik was making a completely different post, and someone in the comments jokingly asked him, when are we resuming the ETH bull posting again? And he answered with that like AI generated graphic that I'm currently showing on screen, And Inverse Bra obviously ripped that, and then there's people been criticizing, do we expect some more selling because Vitalik is bull posting ETH? So it's a very interesting situation we find ourselves in right now.
Yeah, fair point. I think there are a variety of people who have their wallets tagged and are being watched in some respect. Okay, let's do the Web3 roundup to get you up to speed with everything else that's happened in space. We've got a little bit more to do with memes, and we also want to get into the tokenomics for Scroll. We're running a little bit short on time today, so I will be fast myself. The Web3 roundup is this piece of news number one. HBO documentary identifies Peter Todd. We've discussed that already. Crypto.com responds to a well notice by suing the SEC. That was pretty significant yesterday. USDC partners with Sui to be the first move-based L1 to partner with Circle. Bitcoin holders lock up 1.4 billion as Babylon staking expands. I still on my list to get into Bitcoin DeFi more. I need to do that urgently. Coinbase announces users can now send Bitcoin to Taproot addresses, creating access to more on-chain destinations. Finally, Jupiter launches mobile app to trade on Solana with Apple Pay integration. I definitely want to download that actually and play around. Look, let's do the meme coin stuff. Sam, you just want to give us a quick update on the meme coin situation, what's moving, what's hot, and then want to throw to Legendary and Bread on Scroll, because that's pretty significant with Binance in the mix. Sammy first.
Yeah, so I think, I'm starting to categorize memes into different subsegments. And I think that you've got the pump fund memes, which you can literally go to CoinGecko. They've now got a section on there where you can see all the top movers there. And you've got, I think Frog is the top. That's literally just flipped Mudo for the top pump fund meme. Even Epic Duck, which is Mando's meme coin that he started 7 months ago, did like an explosive move, I think, in the past, earlier this week. But there's a number of memes that are kind of popping off from the pump fund trenches. But I do think the top 20, if you look at the top 20 tokens overall by market cap, I think 4 or 5 of them are memes. So you've got WIF that has moved significantly. So this is top movers in the past 24 hours. I think WIF, Doge, Brett, they've all kind of outperformed a lot of these other just altcoins. So there's obviously been a lot of movement there. And I don't know, just looking at some of the other coins, so the top movers that interested me, that I found quite intriguing, which I touched on earlier. So the Monero coin is probably the top mover in the top 100 coins by 24 hours, and that's up 4.7%. And I don't know if this does lean into that whole discussion around people being overly monitored and overly scrutinized for kind of talking about meme coins and then potentially selling them. Because if you've got a privacy coin that's kind of leading the charge, like, is there something to that? And then outside of memes specifically, just looking at some of the other top movers in the top 100, Aerodrome Finance, which we touched on Monday, sorry. So that's one of the biggest DeFi protocols on Base. I think they've got recently just ticked over $1 billion in TVL, and now their token's starting to move in the past 24 hours. That's up 4.5%. And then 2 other movers that I was interested in were TRX and BNB. And potentially, there was a bit of a meme season on Tron. So that's up. The TRX token's now up 2.5%. BNB's up almost 2%. So these two chains have historically had some memes kind of running. So we've seen some movement in the trenches on Solana and ETH mainnet, but you could potentially see people trying to front run these other chains now as well.
Interesting. Thanks for that little rundown across the board on memes and some of the top 100 as well. I do find it interesting to check in on the top 100, mostly because so many things I did not know existed in there. So it's useful to keep checking in there and see what's going on. We've only got 6 minutes left, and we definitely want to get into the Scroll stuff because Binance are involved. There's definitely been some controversy around this. Legendary, you're going to explain what's going on. Brett's going to come in with some commentary.
Absolutely. First, let's take a step back. What is Scroll? Scroll is a ZK layer 2 solution built on top of Ethereum. If you look at some of the stats on DeFi Llama, we can see the TVL is 750 mil, stablecoins market cap on there, 100 mil with 76K active addresses over the last 24 hours. And Scroll came out with a blog post that many people have been expecting or had expected for a long time, people who had farmed Scroll for more than a year. and it is to do with announcing the Scroll, the SCR token launch, with quite some interesting things that, as you mentioned before, led to some of the controversy. Just going to go through some of the details in the tokenomics. The very, very first thing that stood out to people is that the airdrop snapshot date is forward-looking. So the snapshot, they announced the snapshot has not been taken yet. It's going to be taken in 10 days, with a token launch to happen 3 days after that. So that already got people a bit upset, but I'm not going to go into all of the commentary, just rather try to set it up first. And in terms of the tokenomics, if we take a look at that, we have 15% earmarked for airdrops, 7% earmarked for airdrop 1, 8% earmarked for a future airdrop, 17% for investors, 23% for Scroll contributors, 10% for the foundation, 35% for ecosystem and growth. That tokenomics sheet also received some pushback because the investor plus team allocation was considered to be pretty high. I'd probably push back on that part. If you look at something like Arbitrum has 40% treasury allocation, has 17% for investors as well, has 27% actually allocated to teams and advisors. So it's not out of the norm in terms of how an L2 tokenomics sheet is to be shaped. However, one of the things that's also the main criticism that I've been seeing on the timeline that connects to the Binance part of things is the first airdrop, again, that's 7%, sharing that on screen for people who have farmed that. And if we then scroll over or head over to the Binance launch pool, it is going to be a launch pool token. And the launch pool location is 5.5%. So people will be basically farming a couple days on the launch pool, can almost make as much in terms of the overall allocation, and people have been actually using the chain for more than a year. There is one caveat there. There's a maximum holding limit per user of 2.5K tokens. But still, if you extrapolate away from that and you look at the overall numbers, we can see that here again, launch pool token rewards of 55 mil SCR, 5.5% of all of the tokens versus 7% that go to people who have used the chain, who also certainly have farmed the chain over the last year. So that definitely led to a fair amount of pushback on the timeline.
Amazing summary. That's super, super helpful. Definitely challenging with the amount that is being given to the centralized exchange. And I think one of the questions that people have had is like, well, why are there fewer centralized exchange listings happening in the last few months, right? And I guess the conclusion that people are arriving to is that the reason why is because teams or protocols do not want to pay this extortionate tax. It's kind of like, in return for this 5.5%, we will list you, but if you don't meet this bar, you will not get your listing. And so I think a lot of teams are looking at this percentage and deciding that it is too much to pay, and therefore they'll just try to go about their token launch in another way. Legendary, do you think, what's your kind of stance on the 5.5%? If Scroll's to come out at $1 billion, or something in that region for an L2, in fact, Bread is back with us, so maybe I'll go straight to him with it if his connection is okay. Bread, we were just saying, if Scroll's to come out at $1 billion, even if it was just under for a reasonable L2 valuation, maybe a little bit under, 5.5% is quite a lot. Like, what's your stance on the quantity that gets given to the centralized exchange? You are on mute at the moment, but you are not on mute.
All right, first check. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yep.
can.
Well, Brett is
Cool. Yeah, so it's hard for me to say like the actual token allocation that they give to central.
Okay, Legendary, you answer the question.
As
soon as we need Brad, he is having a nightmare. So, Legendary.
We've seen higher token allocations with the Binance launch pool, and it always led to pushback. Obviously, the question is how much can a Binance listing pump the token? However, the issue is not only with the allocation, it's the combination of a high allocation. Again, if we look at the farming period, I highlighted this here on the screen that I'm sharing. Farming period is from the 9th to the 10th of October. It's basically you farm the hut for 2 days, and it's kind of disincentivizing people, or it's kind of, at least I used Scroll for a fair bit. I'm not too irritated about that, but I can understand the line of thought that if you're actually trying everything out with an L2, obviously you have the financial incentive, which is perfectly normal in the space. And then you can see that a Binance listing basically allows people to do what you have farmed in a year within 2 days. And without the people who have used the chain, the Binance listing wouldn't exist. I can understand that criticism. Again, the question would be, how would an L2 launch, the FTV, look like in absence of Binance, and how high would the FTV be with Binance? I'd probably argue that the Binance premium is still worth that. However, the cautionary thing would be, because you get those tokens immediately from the launch pool, and again, you only need to farm 2 days. You never need to use Scroll. You don't have any attachment to the L2. The most likely thing, realistically, is you get those tokens and you fucking sell them, because you see them as a return on the BNB that you're holding, because this is a token that actually gets the reward. So that creates an additional sell pressure. So you have the positive effect, to sum it up, of the Binance listing driving FTV, and you have the negative effect that the most likely thing is that the launch pool farmers will sell it and add to the sell pressure of people who have been using Scroll for the last year on top, and probably annihilate the positive effect of having the Binance listing altogether.
Interesting. Okay, I think that's very nicely summarized. Sam, I want to come to you for a final point. I know we're over time, but just because I think this is important, what you just shared with us. What's this about Binance's market share sinking at the moment? Do you want to just give a quick insight here?
Yeah, so I mean, so they've always had these high fees, and rightly so. Like you're effectively, it's still one of the top, if not the top SEC, so
100%.
centralized exchange. But Binance volume is at a 4-year low, so trading volume. And I think that it then becomes a trade-off. It's like, well, are we willing to give away this portion of our token allocation for something that maybe the volume isn't what it used to be? Maybe it is overpriced. So I think teams are actually questioning it. And this CoinDesk article that I posted in our private chat, it does touch on a comparison to crypto.com. And that makes me kind of, I guess, in terms of domain names, like, so Jennifer, great content creator, actually posted a video the other day talking to one of her friends outside of crypto. And she asked her, okay, so if I say the word crypto, what do you think? And she's just like, well, actually, I think of the crypto.com logo. So actually, I don't know, and their volumes actually surged 40%, whereas Binance is at a 4-year low. So it's just interesting to see, like, is Binance the correct exchange to go with? Are there alternatives that are doing well for significantly less? And actually, are there tier 2, tier 3 exchanges that can do a better deal for you effectively? And I think people are actually starting to question that.
Interesting. Interesting insight. Definitely would be interesting to look into those numbers and get a sense of why Binance is in such a superior position, or why people at least view them as such, if it might be declining to some degree, which this article reports. So maybe a bit more of an analysis here would be helpful, but definitely appreciate you bringing it up. Guys, that is our show. We are overtime today. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to Legendary, Sammy, and Bread, as always, for joining me. And thank you guys for joining us. Remember, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. We're live on X. We're live on YouTube too. Have a wonderful day. Take care. And we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.